I'm standing right outside the Grand Hotel, which is situated in RTI's backyard. It's one of Taiwan's most iconic landmarks, but no foreign tourist has stayed there for 2 years since Taiwan closed its borders. But a recent change to Taiwan's quarantine policy for incoming travelers has some people thinking that foreign tourists might be staying at the Grand Hotel sooner rather than later. In today's show, we're going to give you an inside look at the Grand Hotel, and then we're going to tell you about some of the changes to Taiwan's quarantine policy. Then in #Taiwan, I'm going to be showing you some Taiwanese houses that certainly don't look as nice as that. This is Taiwan Insider. Let's get started. The Grand Hotel was Taiwan's very first five-star hotel. It's a place that's teeming with history. In this week's show, Emma Burnett gives you an inside look at the historic landmark and shows you some of its secrets.
Welcome to the Grand Hotel, Taiwan's very first five-star hotel. The Grand Hotel sits on Yuanshan Mountain and overlooks the Keelung River in Taipei, where it was built in 1952. The hotel's construction was groundbreaking for Taiwan in many ways. When it was built, it was the tallest building in Taiwan. The wife of President Chiang Kai-shek, Song Mei-ling, commissioned the Grand Hotel after the Kuomintang fled from China to Taiwan. At the time, there were no five-star hotels to host foreign officials. Once the hotel was completed, the foreign politicians came pouring in, later including guests like Dwight Eisenhower, Nelson Mandela, and Margaret Thatcher. By the 1970s, the Grand Hotel was already famous internationally, after Fortune magazine named it in the top 10 hotels in the world in 1967. The Grand Hotel also goes by the name Dragon Palace, and for good reason. There are around 220,000 dragon images and statues spread throughout the hotel, although no one has been able to track the exact amount. One of the special details hidden within the hotel is an escape tunnel, with both a slide and stairway for a secret evacuation. The Grand Hotel staff say that the tunnel was built so that high-ranking officials could quickly escape in case of an attack or natural disaster. While the Grand Hotel may not be the tallest building in Taiwan anymore, it's still trying to keep up with the times. Recently, the hotel launched a project to restore some of the older wooden furniture so that young Taiwanese designers can give them a more contemporary look. Booking a room at the Grand Hotel comes at a grand price, but the hotel is also open to tourists who want to learn more about the building's history and taste its fine cuisine. These days, there aren't many foreign travelers coming to Taiwan. But hopefully, once it's safe to travel again, this beautiful tribute to traditional Chinese architecture will be bustling with guests from around the world once again.
If you're interested in visiting the Grand Hotel but aren't in Taiwan, well, that might be a little hard considering that the country isn't open to tourists just yet. But Taiwan is slowly but surely opening up. Earlier this week, authorities eased quarantine restrictions for incoming travelers. Staś Butler is going to tell you about the 3+4 quarantine plan that came into effect this Wednesday.
Taiwan has cut quarantine for travelers to just 3 days, but there are some rules to be aware of. First off, tourists are still not allowed in. Only Taiwanese people, foreigners with residence, and business travelers can enter Taiwan, along with a few others. After you land in Taiwan, you do 3 days of isolation plus 4 days of so-called self-health management. We'll get on to what that is later. So in total, that's 7 days, 3 in and 4 out. But here's the kicker. For those 7 days, you need to be in the same place. So that means if you do your isolation in a hotel, you need to be there for self-health management too. That means you should book your room for 8 nights. If you isolate at home or at a friend's place, no one else is allowed to be in the house for 7 days. Not during your 3 days isolation and not during your 4 days self-health management. Now, if you want to mix and match and do 4 nights in a hotel plus 4 at home, it is technically possible, but you need to apply to the local government for permission. So once 3 days isolation is up, you start self-health management. That means you can go to work, go to formal business occasions, and go shopping for essentials, but nothing else. You'll need to wear a mask all the time and avoid crowded places, including public transport. Before you leave the house for the first time, you need to test negative on a rapid test. You're given 2 of those tests when you land. Each negative test result is valid for 48 hours. So in those 48 hours, you're allowed to leave the house. And when that time is up, you'll need to take another one. Of course, if at any point you start feeling ill, you should take a rapid test right away. And if it's positive, make sure to tell health authorities straight away. Now, that's it for the rules right now. But as for things might be heading in the future, Emma Bonac has the answers.
With the recent easing of quarantine rules for incoming travelers, that has some people asking, what's next? Can we do away with traveler quarantine entirely? When can Taiwan get rid of its mask mandate? Idamar Waxman tells you what medical experts think.
The Health Ministry announced on Monday that starting June 15th, all travelers arriving in Taiwan will have to quarantine for only 3 days, down from 7. They will then have to do 4 days of self-health management. Dr. Huang Gaolin says authorities should see if cases keep falling. If they do, he believes in September there's a chance quarantine will be scrapped. Dr. Huang Limin says the keys to dropping quarantine are raising 3-dose vaccination rates for the elderly to 80% and having enough COVID treatments available. If those conditions are met, he thinks there's no need to wait until September to get rid of quarantine. But others fear opening too soon will stop Taiwan from keeping out new variants. Dr. Jiang Guanyu says research from Japan shows that other Omicron subvariants are more severe. He says that everyone should have a 4th dose or a 2nd-generation COVID vaccine. Only then does it make sense to waive quarantine requirements. Though quarantine may last a while longer, others are wondering when mask requirements will be relaxed. As summer begins in Taiwan, masks still must be worn outdoors in most situations. Dr. Huang Limin says masks are most likely here to stay until next year. He says at that time, the virus may stop mutating into stronger variants. Better vaccines will also be available. Then masking rules could be relaxed. November through February is the peak of flu season. With COVID still spreading, masking might still have to play a part. But once flu season subsides, many are hoping those masks will finally come off.
While restrictions for international travelers are rolling back, Taiwan is also thinking about easing restrictions on domestic travel.
As Taiwan's current COVID outbreak looks to be slowing down, many are starting to look towards traveling again. But government rules require all those participating in travel groups to have 3 doses of a COVID vaccine. Some are wondering if this might change. Transportation Minister Wang Guocai says many people who travel in tour groups tend to be older. Only about 50% of this group have received their 3rd dose, meaning about half can't join tours. Wang says if gyms no longer require 3 doses, in principle, neither should tour groups. He says he has already sent a proposal to Taiwan's epidemic authorities to remove the 3-dose requirement. The tourism industry has been hit hard by the 3-dose requirement. An industry group estimates that half of tour group reservations were canceled after the policy was announced. The tourism industry welcomes the change. Many business persons say it will help breathe new life into Taiwan's hospitality sector. It also could prepare the industry to welcome foreign tourists if Taiwan relaxes border restrictions in the second half of the year. The Transportation Ministry says if epidemic authorities approve the rule change, they will publish new guidelines next month.
As the government moves to live with COVID, health authorities are warning against reopening too quickly. They found 2 more contagious Omicron subvariants in Taiwan, and experts say another wave of infections could be coming soon.
COVID cases remain high in Taiwan, but daily numbers are trending down. This week, epidemic authorities said they found the Omicron BA4 and BA5 subvariants in people coming from abroad. What could that mean for Taiwan's current outbreak? Dr. Li Jianzhang says he expects the current outbreak to be mostly over by the end of July. But as new variants enter Taiwan, daily cases may begin rising again in September, starting a new wave. Many believe that previous infection protects them from getting sick again. Experts are saying that isn't true. They say it might be time to discard the idea of herd immunity. Dr. Li says new variants mean our immune systems face a different virus. That means our antibodies can't protect us as effectively. With immunity typically waning 3 months after infection, experts say Taiwan can expect a new COVID wave to start around November. They say authorities should prepare enough antiviral medications. The subvariant cases found this week surely won't be the last. Dr. Jiang Shoushan says the 5 cases of BA4 and BA5 found this week were all unrelated to each other. With these variants spreading outside of Taiwan, every flight that lands in the country is almost guaranteed to have people infected with the new subvariant. He says with border restrictions loosening, it's only a matter of time before the variant starts spreading in the community. The BA4 and BA5 subvariants are more contagious than earlier ones. They are also more likely to cause moderate or severe symptoms. That means though cases seem to have peaked, it may not yet be time to let our guards down.
Next up, Leslie Liao views some questionable Taiwan real estate in #Taiwan.
This is 22-year-old YouTuber Xi Lan. His father is Belgian and his mother is Belgian Chinese. He said he was living in Shanghai, but earlier this year he said in his most popular YouTube video to date that he escaped the city after authorities implemented strict lockdowns in response to a COVID-19 outbreak. Xi Lan moved to Belgium, and then on May 31st he announced he was moving to Taiwan on a business visa. As Xi Lan prepared to move to Taiwan, he took to Twitter to complain about Taiwan's housing. He claimed that each Taiwan apartment is uglier than the last. Is that true? I think everyone has different tastes and aesthetics, and we're all used to different things, so who's to say Xi Lan is wrong? But Xi Lan may have come off a little picky and snobbish considering his budget. On the low end, you can find something for as little as 6,000 new Taiwan dollars, which is about $200 a month. And that's the priciest city in the country, Taipei. Sure, for something that cheap, it's not going to be pretty, but the option is there. I would say you can find very comfortable accommodation in Taipei for about 20,000 new Taiwan dollars a month per person, or around $600. The thing about Xi Lan is, he said his budget ranged from 150,000 to 200,000 new Taiwan dollars, which is 10 times my budget for finding a place to stay. Some people pointed out that with that kind of money, Xi Lan can just shack up in a 5-star hotel and call it a day. All that aside though, I will say houses in Taiwan can get weird, bizarre, and downright terrifying. Look no further than the Facebook page Rental Madness Taiwan, where people post interesting housing finds in Taiwan. Take for example this apartment posted to the group. A dresser, couch, coffee table, TV, and bed are so tightly cramped into a single tiny space that there's barely any room to stand, not to mention walk around. I think the landlord's goal here was to jam as much stuff as he could into that space so he can jack up the price. Then you also got this picture of a stairway with a fire door which serves no apparent purpose smack in the middle of it. There's an apartment with a punching bag next to a television, which is great if you don't care about your security deposit. Next, let's talk about washing machines in the bathroom, because apparently in Taiwan, that's a thing. You have this apartment where a washing machine is installed in an actually nice looking tub. If you're the type to enjoy soaking more than rinsing, well then there's also an apartment where the washing machine comes in the shower and not the bathtub. There's also this one where the bathroom is separated by a sliding glass door because, you know, privacy was so last century. If you're the musical type, there's an apartment that has a piano next to the toilet. Speaking of toilets, if you're the kind of person who wants some company when you go to the bathroom, then never fear, because this apartment has a toilet where the inside of the seat has a picture of a woman smiling at you. Nothing like seeing a friendly face first thing in the morning. I'm very particular when it comes to housing, and a lot of these images are nothing short of horrifying to me, so this is about as much as I can handle. But as you can see, Taiwan offers a variety of housing options. Like, the range is so broad. Instead of being relatively normal to extremely luxurious, Taiwan's spectrum ranges from what on earth to wow, that's really nice. Anyway, I hope Xi Lan can find a nice house. As we've seen here, there's a lot to sift through.
Before we leave, here's a look at some of the other news stories that are on our radar.
Taiwan's foreign ministry has pushed back against Beijing's claim to sovereignty over the Taiwan Strait. China's foreign ministry spokesperson said on Monday that the strait is part of China's territorial waters, but Taiwan says Beijing's claim is a distortion of international law and shows its intent to annex Taiwan. The foreign ministry says Taiwan will work with like-minded countries to defend the international rules-based order. Health Minister Chen Shizhong tested positive for COVID-19 on Sunday. Officials say he has common symptoms of the virus. At 68 years old, Chen has a relatively high risk of becoming seriously ill. He also has a history of smoking and a coronary stent. But the health minister has been vaccinated with 3 doses of a COVID vaccine. On Thursday, authorities reported that Chen no longer has a fever. Out of over 3 million total COVID cases in Taiwan, almost 800 have long COVID. That's according to statistics from epidemic authorities. Taiwan defines long COVID as having symptoms 3 months after diagnosis. Symptoms include anxiety, depression, and trouble breathing. More than 90 hospitals around the country are offering special clinics to treat people with the illness.
And we're back in the studio for our final question of the week. Now, guys, this week I'm going to be asking you a question. We did our show on the Grand Hotel, one of Taiwan's many iconic landmarks. So my question to you is, it's not the only landmark. So my question to you is, you have a friend coming to Taiwan, first time they've ever been here. What's the one landmark you have to take them to? Stash?
Oh, well, I mean, this one, I think, it's a bit off the beaten track, but I'm going to go with it. It's Maokong.
Nice.
Yeah, so this is in Taipei, technically outside of Taipei, up in the hills. It's where lots of tea was originally grown, and, you know, it's just a beautiful place. You get a view of Taipei at night. It's, you know, beautiful.
There's a gondola up there too, right?
Exactly. And
Would
it's
you
just
take
like
a stop at the zoo?
Exactly, stop at the zoo. And it's just like very special, and I think very different for anyone who's coming from abroad to
Cards
experience
on the
that kind of
table? I've never been there.
Me neither.
Oh my god, what? We were just talking. I'm just like telling you all this.
You need to take us there.
I'll take you
Take
guys.
us there.
This is outrageous. All right. Well, Emma,
Before we offend Stash any further, Emma, what's yours?
So mine's even farther than just outside of Taipei. Mine's all the way in Tainan. So this is Anping Fort. And I think that if you want to understand the history of Taiwan, you really need to go to Tainan. Like, this fort was built way back in the 1600s. There's the whole history of colonization by the Dutch, and then finally, they got their own power back.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool to be able to show all this old architecture.
That's actually really cool. And you're a resident Tainan person. You should,
Yeah, definitely have to take
Emma
them
moved
there.
up from Tainan to be with us at Radio Taiwan International, so you're the one person that I would ask to take me around Tainan. For me, my answer is Jiufen, which is a gold mining town right in New Taipei City. No more gold there, but it's also right next to the sea, and it's a mountainous town that just faces the sea. It's beautiful. I have a tea house that I like to go to, and I like the touristy stuff, you guys. Like, some people say it's too touristy out there. I kind of like it.
It's pretty touristy, but
Yeah.
you know, if that's your thing,
I
just
like
go
it.
for
I really do. Anyway, that's about all the time we have for this edition of Taiwan Insider. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Leslie Liao.
I'm Stash Butler.
And I'm Emma Banaf.
Make sure you follow us on social media. You can catch us on Facebook and YouTube.
We're also on Instagram.
And Twitter as well. And while you're there, leave us a message, leave us a comment, tell us what you think of the show. Until next week, you guys, see you around.